Welcome, everyone. And I just go by Jay during the Q&A. And I was asked to speak as an important staff member for Fresh Energy, which is now 33 years old in Minnesota and is a non-profit, non-partisan organization. So how do we get more people working together on clean energy and climate policy? The first thing to know about the history of Fresh Energy is I was not here for the first 5 years, but every year after that. And I've always been in the legislature. And in every legislative session, we at Fresh Energy, with lots of partners, has helped move into law at least one bill, often a handful of bills. And in 2023, and you guys were part of this, we all got 46 bills passed into law. And that was 50 years of legislative work that happened in 5 months. So every one of those pieces, every one but one of those pieces was bipartisan. And that is hugely important to us. And it's very clear that in the 2025 session, that's also of growing importance. And so when we first started working on climate policy in 1995 at Fresh Energy, we knew we needed to grow support. And we had the idea of we needed more businesses to support what we were aiming for. And we got a lot of businesses to support that. And then we zeroed in on, it was because we were going through a period of time, like about 12 years ago, we came up with our first set of core values for Fresh Energy. And we made big signs to post around the office. We were very proud of ourselves. And then we realized, a lot of other groups have core values too, including every utility. So we sought out to reach directly to the leadership of every utility, starting with Xcel Energy. And we met with their CEO, and we approached them by saying, we would like to take you out to lunch or breakfast 4 times a year and share with you how Fresh Energy works, how we make our decisions, and what core values are underneath the surface. And we'd like you to share your values too. And our goal was to see if we could agree on about 50% of our core values. And it took us a number of years to get around to this part of the discussion. But when we went back to the office and discussed what we learned in those couple of years of breakfasts and lunches, we found out that we agreed on 87% of our core values with Xcel Energy. And so we knew right away we could work on doing projects together. And that was great. Also, all along this time, I was out doing outreach in every big town and small city and big city in Minnesota. Everyone except Crookston, Minnesota, which I'm going to speak in October. And everywhere we went, we were aiming to assemble big crowds, and we often got, believe it or not, 1,100 people in a room. And we had all the media, and we never used the words Republican or Democrat. So that is important to our work too. And we always assembled, I'll quote to you what one Republican senator from Minnesota said of our meeting of 1,100 people in Edina, Minnesota. He came over to me, and I'd known him for a couple of years. We went to the same college together, though we went at different times. But he came over to me and he hugged me. I had never been hugged by this man before. And he said, Jay, you have assembled here everyone who is anyone in the Edina. And he was speaking about the mayor, all the city council members, most of the legislators, or all the legislators, the leading clergy, the leading businesses. Dairy Queen was the number one of them, the biggest high school groups, and that was very fascinating too. So we knew that getting together a big group, and every time we had that big group together, and this was my idea, we had to have a simple postcard that we could ask everyone there to sign. And these were postcards that depended on what time of year we were speaking, what we were speaking about. And sometimes the postcard was directed to Republican Governor Pawlenty. Sometimes it was delivered to Democratic U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar with great success. And often it was, we had promised to send those postcards and deliver them in person to their Minnesota legislators. And we always did that. And that always got us big results. And I want to close by saying one other thing that is really striking me now. And that is that Governor Walz, as you maybe know, has an advisory council on climate change. This is his second advisory council now. I've been appointed to it. That means that I'm one of 15 Minnesotans of all stripes from all sectors, and all with different politics. We are charged with recommending to the governor his next specific steps and specific actions on climate change. And he's not looking for blue sky ideas. He's looking for us to take blue sky ideas and bring them to the climate modelers that work for the state and are based at the University of Maryland, and see how much carbon these ideas will reduce and what they'll cost Minnesota. And I think what that stems from is whenever I've heard Governor Walz talk about climate, he mentions the word climate once. And he says, and he usually puts up a sign that says, good climate policy is good economic policy. And then the rest of his remarks are about the economic benefits and the benefits to all kinds of people in all parts of Minnesota. So, for example, he will use examples of affordability, reliability of having a strong electric grid, the number of jobs created, what they pay, and what fraction of them are in rural Minnesota, and people's health and the benefits to people's health. And I would just want to let you know that our Advisory Council on Climate Change has been charged with the sub-cabinet on the climate. And we are to provide by December 1 of this year, the 2.0 of the Climate Action Framework. And this means the next steps, the actionable steps. And we need to go out and get a lot of public opinions about those. So I expect that some of these draft next steps will be taken out and taken around Minnesota to get people's comments. And we would love to have your help with that. So please stay in touch with me, and I'm going to be very transparent about what this information is and how you can weigh in. Because I really find that when I talk to, well, the example that came up of Rotary clubs. I spoke to 3 different Rotary clubs just last week, and they were all very different. And I love Rotary clubs. And I have taken the tact for the last about 7 years, because I get invited out to speak like 50 times a year. And mostly I get to choose what I'm talking about. And I decided about 7 years ago, I go to all these public meetings all around the state, and not many people are there. But they are public meetings, and each time I learn something new happening in Minnesota that's very positive for big reductions in carbon and affordability. And I decided, well, I'll just start off the Rotary Club this morning in Eden Prairie, and it started meeting at 7:30 a.m. And I said, I have 4 blockbuster good news stories from you, 4 from Minnesota, all that have happened since the election day, and don't require any federal action. They're all decided by state actors in Minnesota. And then I go through and tell them the stories. I do 4 stories, 5 minutes each, because it's Rotary, it's quick. So, and then after each story, I turn to the group and say, how many of you have heard about this story? And no one ever raises their hand. These are all things that were headlines above the fold on the front page of the Star Tribune. And these are educated people. But it was a good thing. And now, last week, I heard comments from a couple of members at each Rotary Club. They wanted to come shake my hand, and they said, I think you've got a winning idea, because you're telling us about new, very good news for Minnesota's affordability of energy and big, deep reductions in Minnesota, in different parts of Minnesota, in rural Minnesota and in urban Minnesota. So I really advise you all to think about telling many more resounding success stories, because Minnesotans are very innovative and very entrepreneurial. Thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you so very much, everyone. And thank you, Jay Drake. Jay has been one of my heroes for many years. I've heard her speak many times. And I too have done a fair amount of nonpartisan work as a member of Citizens Climate Lobby. Alan and Debbie, who are on this call, have joined me off lobbying in Washington, D.C. and here in the state for climate solutions. I've also been a climate reality leader since 2019. However, I've put my energy lately into the DFL Environmental Caucus, which I helped to start in 2015, along with Debbie Nelson, who's on this call, and others. And our mission as a caucus is to educate and mobilize the citizens of Minnesota to address the climate crisis and to protect, preserve, and restore the natural environment. So why, if I've done all this nonpartisan work, and did I choose to start this organization in the DFL? Well, first of all, Debbie and others, we went to our 2014 state convention, and we're very surprised that there was no community caucus that was advocating for environmental issues or climate or environmental justice. There was a need for this because the DFL party has always had in their platform the importance of protecting the environment, of acting on climate, all of that, but it was never at the top of the list. It always gets pushed down under other priorities and often just a slight mention, if anything. So we really wanted to elevate the issue. And we've realized that who represents us matters hugely. So part of my work with the caucus has been to work with an endorsement team. And we are sanctioned in order to interview and endorse candidates for office. And then we help them get elected. And we especially are aware that right now we need better representation in the Senate. We have some people calling themselves DFLers that are voting on bills that are horrible. So that's something we've worked on. And I have run for office myself too. I ran for the Minnesota House in 2024 in my very red district. And it was very enlightening. So, but we do, as an environmental caucus, work with nonpartisan groups, including Fresh Energy and Minnesota Environmental Partnership and Friends of the Mississippi and Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy and MN 350 and others. And our role is a little different, though, because we are part of the DFL. We can push people that, especially those we've endorsed, to act in a certain way, or at least to listen to us, and urge people to write in. So our goals for forming this legislative committee this year were to form at least 4 more lobby days or attend them, to come up with a list of key issues and priorities that we wanted to both push forward and things that we want to protect, to have all of our members do at least 2 or more contacts with legislators a month, and I know several are doing many more, and to raise visibility of our caucus by building relationships with other legislatures, other caucus groups, other nonpartisan groups. I've testified several times before committee, which of course raises visibility of our group. And we've hosted 6 forums so far with guest speakers that were nonpartisan groups coming forward and also legislators. Our last forum, we actually had to increase our Zoom account because we had 150 people on the Zoom, which was very nice. So when I ask committee members, what are the key issues you would like to work on? You'll see quickly from the graph that water quality and conservation and energy and climate rise to the top, as do things like conserving green spaces, right? And divesting of fossil fuels and taking care of waste. So this is telling me that these are the issues people care about. Some of our action as a caucus, I'm going to just top left picture. This is a lobby day with Rise and Repair. This has been an awesome group climate advocating for Indigenous rights and also climate justice that we've been working with. Middle picture is Rick Hansen, one of our DFL environmental champions. I was helping this group connect with Rick at the Capitol. So they were doing a lobby meeting, and as an experienced volunteer lobbyist, I was helping them out. We're also, of course, showing up at protests. Middle left is one of our champions, Bob Tamman, who came down to testify about the dangers of copper nickel sulfide mining, which of course has a huge climate impact if we allow that to happen here. Picture of me testifying, more lobby groups. Bottom left, I talked about endorsements. We do get involved in elections here and interview candidates. David Godfrey is someone that we not only endorsed, but we're out there door knocking for, helping to get elected. And then on a national level, I was a DNC, rather a national delegate for Kamala Harris and a climate voter, and helped with the DNC's Climate Council meeting that was held during that week. And we also get involved with more local issues. This is Minneapolis, the East Phillips neighborhood fight to keep that roof depot so they can do their urban garden. I mentioned these already earlier, so we also table at events, and we'll be tabling at the Earth Day event with MN 350 in St. Paul on the 19th, and then the rally at the Capitol on the 22nd. And again, if there are people from this group that would like to join, let me know. I can help you get connected. I'm sending out weekly action alerts. I work with Greg Layden, co-chair of the Legislative Committee, who sends out these alerts to about 1,000 people weekly, talking about what's going on at the Capitol, what bills people should be paying attention to, which phone calls to make, which emails to make to keep people on track, and they very much appreciate that. So the key policy that we've been working on this session is really protecting those bills that Jay Drake spoke about passing in 2023 And a critical one, of course, was the carbon-free electricity by 24 with its renewable energy benchmarks. So especially when we had a Republican majority in the House, we saw a number of really bad bills come up before committee. House File 9 had several elements that we fought and testified against. You may remember Tina Clark, who's a member of this group. She helped connect us with Mark Jacobson, well-known Stanford professor who testified and did a forum for us with legislators, and Ramana, professor from British Columbia. So we're pulling in resources to help educate our legislators about these issues. Another one, they're trying to streamline permitting. This one, the Senate File 570, actually has a Senate DFLer as one of the authors, which is very concerning to us. And apparently there's been amendments to this 570 that's made it a little less toxic, but we're still concerned. There was even an amendment to repeal the clean car rule. Give me a break, right? Several other things have come up that we've opposed here. So it's really been, especially when the Republicans had the majority, a lot of opposing bills. Data centers have been a huge issue, adding a definition that would make wood chips carbon free, a whole lot, too many here to really go into. But you did do an action alert for this. So what you signed that action alert for is the Senate omnibus bill, which passed today out of committee with 4 DFLers, including the committee chair, Nick Friends, voting for it. Only 2 DFLers voted against it. And of course, the Republicans also voted for it. This bill will sunset the community solar garden program. That's just really getting going. And by 2028, it's done. It has changes to net metering that gets rid of that little bit of value that homeowners got out of it. They are paying a connection fee, so it's not like they're making a lot of money. It helps to offset that. It exempts data centers from a certificate of need with the PUC to put in 250 diesel generators that obviously are emitting particulate pollution, are going to be very noisy. And some of these, like the one proposed in Farmington, is in a residential neighborhood. It even defines biodiesel fuel as carbon-free. To be used as peaker plants, adds large hydro. And again, this is a concern to us. We have lots of people making phone calls to these DFL senators to say, please do not support this because you're hurting our climate goals. There are some things in the bill that are wonderful that I know Fresh Energy has advocated for, which is geothermal, right? And that we are glad to see some inclusion of dollars there. Patty Akums has a bill and Peter Fisher has a bill to talk about permitting with these data centers so that we're not just letting them come in and trusting that they're going to do the right thing. And I'm honestly not sure how much of that got included in the House omnibus, but I'll be there tomorrow at the committee listening. And then we were concerned there was a move to take the community grant portion out of the Environmental Resource Trust Fund money. And it's important that we have that. There have been underserved communities that weren't able to get access to this money. And so that has stayed in, and which we're grateful for. Again, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, the House Energy Committee is meeting. Chair Acom has the gavel. If you can make it to that meeting tomorrow, it'll be a very important one for environmentalists to show up. And following that, in the Senate Environment Committee is meeting at 3 o'clock in the Senate office building in room 1150. We've been advocating for the e-waste bill, which is important to our renewable energy efforts, right? We need these critical minerals, and much of them are not right now being recycled. They also cause problems in our landfills. So we're glad to see this included in bills being pushed forward. This is the Senate Environment Committee. They do not have the Wild Rice Act or anything to protect our our public lands from damage by ATV trails, and we're pushing for both of those to get included. I believe there will be an amendment. Well, I know there'll be an amendment offered by Mary Kunish, senator in the committee
Keep going.
tomorrow. Mary Kunish on that matter, and also I think Jen McEwen's going to introduce one to have at least two elements of the trails bill included that would say you need to have signage and you need to have buy-in by tribal community and local communities before you cite these new trails. They did get money on 1.3 million to expand the ATV trails in northern Minnesota. This is something new. We're supporting virtual power plants. This is not going to be a bill that'll come up this session, but something that we're kind of bookmarking for the future as an important way to help stabilize our grid and just another source of distributed power. And obviously, there's a lot of federal action out there that we are fighting. And I think you're all well aware of these items. So I'm going to move on for the purpose of time. I thank you for listening. Again, I'm Veda Kanitz. I'm Legislative Director for the DFL Environmental Caucus. And I would love you to join us in our work if this is something that interests you. If you also wanted to form a legislative group as a working group of this climate reality group, that would be something I'd be interested in helping with. Because again, I'm not just about promoting DFLers, I'm about getting good climate bills passed and good environmental legislation passed. And for that, I understand we need to grow support across the board. So thank you for listening.